Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.
To Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, it's time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayla's gone! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! America! They got a football team now! It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop. Oh.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. So happy to have you along, but not as happy as having Rick Bozich with us. Makes us all the better. Sir Rick, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Jim. How are you?
Cannot complain. I'm ready for some spring weather, man. Got a little taste of it yesterday, and it was nice.
Yeah, I just got back from walking the dog. It's 45 degrees here today. I imagine it's going up in the 60s again. So hopefully we've turned the corner.
Whoop whoop. Well, don't speak yet, man. Don't jinx us. We'll get 10 inches of snow or something next week. Before you know it. I've been throwing out bobbing names out there because it's got to get to a point to where there has to be like a top 3 of viable candidates, but that could be, you ask 3 people, you're going to get 3 different lists. And not one of those 3 lists will be able to get through a fan vote without somebody not liking all 3 of them, or somebody not liking all 3 of them at least. But I threw 3 names out today that I think are, not that it's like my pick or anything, but I think Scott Drew is someone that you got to look at. I know he turned Louisville down. I know he turned Kentucky down. That was a year ago. What's this year like? I don't know. Does he see Baylor as a longer term, tougher battle now, maybe? Or, hey, maybe this is a great opportunity. I don't know, but it's there and he's viable. The money is viable. TJ Otzelberger with his buyout only being $4 million. Got to look at him. People say, well, he won't leave. Who knows? He might. I don't know. And then the third one, I could just fill that in with a lot of different guys. So, I mean, you can go with Brownell as a favorite pick for an Indiana connection, or you could go with Ben McCollum as a young up-and-comer, or Grant McCaslin at Texas Tech. But that's about all for me. But there's other names out there that are just as viable that you can mention probably 6 that are completely different.
Yeah, I don't know about 6, but I could mention a few other ones. But yeah, I agree with you. No matter who you pick, there's going to be people who say, I didn't want him, or here's why they shouldn't have hired him, and this and that. Drew, I don't know. My sense is because he's been at Baylor for as long as he's been there, he's not leaving. They're going to put his name on the floor in the arena at some point. That's his program, built from the dust of the previous scandal. Otzelberger, I think, is a viable candidate. I know that I've said and other people have said previously that his wife's a former Iowa State basketball star, but if you read deeper into his resume, someone said she's actually from Australia, so it's not like she's got lifelong family.
She's a big Aussie fan. She's a big Iowa State fan, you're saying.
There you go. And the third one, I don't know. I mean, I've heard Cronin, I've heard Buzz Williams, I've heard Chris Beard, I've heard on and on and on. I don't know. At this point, I don't know who it's going to be. It's McDermott. you could go. There's probably a couple names that we don't even think of that are at a job that we wouldn't think they would leave, that will at least have their agent inquire to see what Indiana can offer. Because if they're going to offer, over 5, there's probably, I don't know the list for sure, but I doubt there are that many college basketball coaches making over 5 million and for sure over 6 million. You might be able to money whip somebody. You might be able to. And, in today's world, there's going to be some coaches who aren't in the Big Ten or aren't in the SEC that want to be in one of those leagues because they know going forward that's the place to be, because those are the programs that are going to have superior revenue and resources.
Steve asks why I don't coach. I have a job, unfortunately, but I would love to get fired by IU and I could retire. So I wish. But yeah,
go.
it's going to be something. And then the people have asked from a timing standpoint, and I have pinpointed. I think that there will be something come out the either days before the Final Four or that week or immediately afterwards. It's got to be in that timeline because you have to get it out as quickly as possible for roster construction.
Yeah, you do. I think I mentioned this last week that the Archie thing was the Monday after the regionals, because I remember I was in Memphis when Kentucky played and got beat by North Carolina on that shot by Luke May. And we drove from Memphis. Tom Lane and I drove from Memphis to Bloomington on Monday morning. Obviously, after that weekend, there's only 4 teams left. So
how long did that drive take you?
It was a solid 6, I think. 5 or 6.
That makes me feel better about having to drive to Ole Miss for graduation in May.
There you go. You might even be faster because the interstate's all open now. The odds are that's when it'll be. If it's not going to be then, it'll be a coach that got beaten the first weekend of the tournament. So you have that PR hump to navigate.
Yeah.
But I don't. Most of the work's being done right now, I think, in terms of narrowing it down to who they actually are interested in and getting a good sense of who is actually legitimate, would listen. That's the danger you would have in any of these jobs, is sorting the guys who are actually seriously interested in the IU jobs away from the guys who are interested in using the IU job to getting a better contract where they're at right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. Does Indiana end up with a good hire, or do they end up getting themselves in another position where they're kind of chasing their tail, so to speak, trying to fill the position? Big difference in getting a guy and filling the position.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be – the Indiana job's not for every coach. You have to have a coach who understands, A, what the expectations are, B, what the environment is in terms of, fans, and not just in terms of criticism of fans, but fans wanting a coach who engages with them on some level. You need a coach who understands what it's going to be like to be in the Big Ten and what it's going to require to compete in the Big Ten going forward. You have to have a coach who's going to be willing to possibly, move into the new era of having a general manager involved, who's involved in setting up your NIL and all that kind of stuff, because that's a whole new part of the job now. You got to have a more modern thinking, modern looking coach.
That, and Indiana is, unfortunately, because of a lot of comments about when I mentioned Chris Beard, and I say that Chris Beard is not going to happen in any stretch of the imagination. It is not happening.
You're 100% sure of that?
I am 100% sure of that. I really feel that way right now. Now,
yeah, I don't think it is either, but
I can be. But I feel extraordinarily strong about that. Stronger now than I did a week ago.
I tend to agree with you. I don't know if I'd say 100%. I know there are a lot of fans out there that really want them, and then there are people
absolutely
that don't want them. And I just don't think that Indiana is going to go in that direction, and we'll see.
They can't.
I think he wants the job.
Ironically, he would crawl over broken glass to get here for the job. But ironically, last night I watched the Last Days of Night. The 30 for 30 was on, and I just happened to watch it again. And people talk about Knight. They didn't bring that in. They didn't know that was 30 years after the fact that stuff was going to be there. It happened along the way, and then there were people that were allowing it to go on, either pretended they didn't know, or maybe they didn't know until they did. And when you're winning, it's hard to do away with things, and they were winning. So, but they're not going to knowingly bring something in like that. And especially now they've got the thing going on with Bamba. They have enough. They're not going to openly, purposely bring more drama into their lives. I would not imagine.
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole different level in terms of, abusing a woman, whether, I know in the initial police report, there were reports of bite marks, and she couldn't breathe for 5 seconds, and, some fairly serious stuff. I know she recanted later and said she wished she hadn't called the police and he didn't do some of those things, but Texas fired him. And we all know that in last year's go around, it didn't really seem like Kentucky or Louisville or Michigan was interested in Chris Beard. So, he's been 2 years at Ole Miss though, without any incidents. So, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think Indiana's going to go in that direction.
I think he's going to go a few more years at Ole Miss before anybody else takes a shot at him. I think he's just going to have to pine his time for a while, which it is what it is. So, and Indiana is going to have to move on because they're not going to get Brad Stevens, they're not going to get Dusty May, and they're not going to get Chris Beard, the three top desires of most Indiana fans. I'd say that's pretty much a certainty. Now, where do you go from there? Because you're going to get away from any connection, most likely, to the school, which is probably a good thing. Maybe that's exactly what they need to clean it, to kind of cut the line, to cut the umbilical cord. But you still have to have someone that understands the tradition, understands the fans, understands the job. Like you said, it's not a job for everybody. You have to understand, like Tom Crean did, all the things that go along with it and be willing to do those things.
Yeah, you do. And from what we've been able to put together, that wasn't a priority with Mike Woodson. And somebody who's going to build a relationship with grassroots basketball in the state of Indiana, huh?
It almost appeared as it was beneath him.
He didn't want to be bothered by it. Yeah, that's too trivial for him. I don't know. We've already been through this, and we know that he didn't invest the energy in that kind of stuff, and because he didn't see it, in my opinion, he didn't see what the payback was. Well, the payback might not be immediate. The payback might be down the line, where you've gone out and connected with enough people that 3 years from now, there might be some recruit that somebody told him, yeah, I dealt with Woodson. He's a great guy. You'd love to play for him. He gets what Indiana basketball is all about. I don't think he gets those kinds of recommendations from people right now, because I don't think he works at it. I mean, how many times have we dealt with him at Huber's when it's a more relaxed atmosphere, and he'll come in there and talk and be, he's okay, but he doesn't really seem like he loves doing it. And then he'll go sit in the other part of the room by himself and eat, where a guy like Crean would maybe sit down in the middle of a bunch of us and start talking and stuff, even because he gets it. He understands that that's part of the job. Woody doesn't want to be bothered by that stuff. And as long as we've been there, you've been there with him for 4 years. I mean, he never acts in the press conference like he really knows any of the media people, does he? I mean, it's like,
man, 20, he doesn't know some of his players' own names, right?
25 strangers in there asking him questions every week. I mean, right?
All the time, I'm like, does he know me? Does he not know me?
No,
I'm like, it cracks me up. So I'm like, you've been on my show several times. I'm sitting in front of you all the time. But yeah, it's kind of weird.
It's very weird. It's very weird. And, and the way he's gone out with, didn't Yasir do his radio show this week? And he's not doing, when you can't get along with Fish, I don't need to know anymore. That's all I need to know.
Well, it's just the hypocrisy of your own sanctimonious self that you can't get over. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. But it is what it is. But
Well, even in Sunday's game, it was hilarious. They won that game. Well, two of the primary reasons they won that game is, one, he didn't do the substituting he normally does, correct? And secondly is he didn't play two big guys together at all in the second half when they played their best basketball of the year. He played one big guy, mainly Renew, and four other guys who could handle the ball and move and pass and spread the floor. And when Renew came out, Bala went in. Mbako, who we've been talking about on the show for quite a while, his lack of interest in playing defense, sat the entire second half. And what was it, their best defensive performance of the season? I mean, he finally he finally embraced what a lot of people have been talking about since November, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Carlisle didn't play hardly at all. He played a little bit in the first half. Tucker didn't play any. These dudes who don't really want to guard then do what Bob Knight would have done, which is like, okay, sit here and watch the game with me.
Yeah, exactly. And that has happened. I mean, Mackenzie Mbako sure saw a lot of pine time. He didn't play
entire
him.
Second half.
And the fact that Indiana was able to win that game with Trey Galloway and Anthony Leo and Luke Goody is kind of amazing. But that's who won the game, along with Malik Renew and Umar Ballo. No,
and Rice. I thought Rice played
Rice's defense. Oh man, it did.
But
he
here
was the
is
biggest
the next
reason
question.
them.
Isn't the next question like, why haven't you?
Where's
played
that been
like that all year?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, it is. Where has that been is the optimum question. And you do. Why haven't you played like that? Why what caused, as a matter of fact, why did it happen at halftime? Because you're down, because you're losing, because the coach said something. I'd love to know what was the impetus for the play. And if you actually asked that question, I don't think you'd get an answer.
No. He finally got over the hump, Jim. No, I mean, the thing is, offensively, you can have a bad game. You can miss shots. You can possibly be too aggressive and turn the ball over. You can, do other things. But defensively, you should be able to play at a consistent level every game. I mean, you should be able to. And he thoroughly outplayed Braden Smith. They turned him over a bunch of times. He put pressure on the ball that made Purdue uncomfortable. And it was a critical factor in Indiana winning the game. And then you say, are you going to do it Wednesday night against Penn State? Are you going to do it Saturday at Washington? Because if you don't, then they're going to fall back into right where they were before.
Doug Gottlieb. That is funny, Heath. A name out there. Thad Matta. I don't think people realize how close Thad Matta was to being the Indiana coach.
The last time or earlier on?
The last time.
Yeah, no, I think he was the second choice. That's what I was told.
Well, he was, I got a lot of grief over there. We had two words that were inverted, but he was going to be the guy. He called a second meeting, and I think it was at that time he let them know about his health situation, which was pretty serious, and in essence took himself out of the running. And I think that he would have been the Indiana coach if it had not been for that.
I agree. I think he was the second choice, but he wasn't sure he was up to the workload in terms of, getting out and doing stuff, recruiting and traveling and things like that because of the situation he has.
He wasn't at the time.
He wasn't. He is now.
Yeah.
And it's not going, let's be honest, it's not going great at Butler. It's okay. I think he plays Patino tonight, doesn't he? At 9:00.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's got to be a tough place. I mean, what kind of an NIL budget could they have? And they're playing against UConn and Patino and those teams that are very, very serious about it. So it's got to be a tough league to play in now if you don't have NIL.
It is. But I just wonder whether there's somebody out there that nobody's thinking about, some established coach that nobody's thinking about that, like, I don't know. I don't even know who it would be if I had to throw a name out there. Greg Gard or
boy, he would be a hell of a one to get.
Yeah.
Is he the most underrated coach in the Big Ten?
Yes. Yes, he is.
I agree.
And he's changed. He's changed this year. They're an offensive team, not a defensive team. And let's be honest, they lost Chucky Hepburn. They lost, what's his name? AJ Starr last year, who was his best player.
AJ Storr.
Okay.
To Kansas, Connor Esigian
to Nebraska. I mean, he lost 2 starters and a decent sub and went out and replaced them with, this Tanji
and got better.
Missouri, I guess.
He went out and got better. That's the mark of a good coach, and the fact that like you just said, he was able to adjust and change. That is the mark of a great coach. That is the mark of a guy who does what it takes to win. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there is some other big name coach out there who's at his current job that just wants something new in his life. Who knows?
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com with us. Make sure you're giving him a follow, keeping up with all of his content, covering college athletics and more at WDRB.com. How about Matt Painter weighing in on the IU situation? That seems to be making the rounds a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he was asked the question, so he felt it empowered to answer it. I think in a lot of ways, I think he might have been better to say, I just need to coach my team and let Indiana figure out their own deal. The issue I always have with this is, people try and make it like Indiana fans are different than any other fans in the country, and fans are fans everywhere we go, whether it's Alabama football fans, North Carolina basketball fans, Kentucky fans, Ohio State fans, Indiana fans, Purdue fans. Fans are not any different. And the comments about IU fans support the team or whatever else he said, did he say the same thing to Purdue football fans when they turned on their football coach after 2 years? I mean, did he? Did he say it when they turned on Darrell Hazel after 4 years? Purdue's a middle-of-the-road football program, which is, hit the eject button on 2 of their last 3 coaches pretty quick, especially this last guy. And I don't know, did he? I don't remember him saying that to Purdue fans. Maybe I missed it.
No, and the funny thing is, Purdue made the right decision.
They did. They did make the right decision. And if we're being perfectly honest, that Indiana should have made a change last year, and there wouldn't be this mess right now. And they'd have the coach in there they wanted to have, and they probably have some players that they wanted to have. So that's my view on all this. And
more importantly, they'd have the success that they want to have. And more importantly, they'd have the success that they want to have.
Yeah, there have been Matt Painter's not the only. Rick, you've got Rick Pitino pushing Chris Beard. You've got every national media guy writing a column about IU basketball, what they need to do, what they should do, or whatever like that. Everybody feels like they need to weigh in on. They're not weighing in on who Florida State needs to hire. They're not weighing in on who Virginia needs to hire, and they just won a national championship 6 years ago with Tony Bennett. Indiana is the talking point of this entire coaching cycle because people know that the resources and the support the program has is far above any of these other schools. And if they get the right coach in there, they're going to return to prominence again. And that's just the way it is. So that'd be my question for Matt Painter is like, what'd you have to say when Ryan Walters hit the road after 2 years?
Absolutely. And I just wonder what it will be like when Indiana does get back to that point. I think what is good for the Big Ten. I've said it's good for college basketball, but it'll certainly be good for Indiana because I expect them to be good in football for a while. There's no reason not to be because they've committed to it. And they have a guy that can get it done, obviously. So that would be something. And for a school the size of Indiana to be good in both of those sports would be pretty spectacular.
Yeah. I doubt they're going to go 11-2 again, but
no.
If he can keep stacking bowl game appearances in there, and an occasional trip to the playoff, he'll be IU coach for the rest of as long as he wants to be. And he's a guy that we've even seen, as impressive as last season was, the work that they did in the portal after the season showed that, he's taking it up a notch. They got better players this year out of the portal than they got last year. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's going to be, let's see, the conference tournaments are going on in 2 weeks. We'll have teams eliminated from the NCAA tournament in 3 weeks, almost everybody out in 4 weeks. So maybe a month from now, there'll be a press conference in Bloomington and they'll introduce the next coach. It's going to be a long 4 weeks, though, a long 4 weeks.
That's the thing, and lots of chatter between then and now. But tonight, Indiana taking on Penn State, a game that they have to win. Penn State has just really fallen off of the rocker, man, from the beginning of the season. Indiana got that road win, and at the time it looked really good, but it has really kind of paled since then. But Indiana has to get this game won, of course. They have their final game will be against Ohio State at home. In between, after this game, they hit the road heading west to Oregon and Washington. I think that they have to go 3-1. I don't know that they have to go 4-0. A win over Oregon would do them a lot of good. A loss is probably not going to hurt them terribly. 3-1 with a win in the Big Ten tournament, I don't know if that's enough.
You don't think 3-1 and a win in the Big Ten tournament is enough? I think that would be enough. That would get them to,
and a win in the Big Ten tournament enough, you think?
If they beat Penn State, Washington, and Ohio State and get one win in the Big Ten tournament, I think that'll probably be enough. But it'll all come down to how many off-the-wall winners there are in some of these conference tournaments that are multiple bid leagues. Those are where, it makes it hard to predict what's going on. They're going to have to sweat it out on Selection Sunday unless they go 4-0 the rest of the regular season and win a game or two in the Big Ten tournament. And I mean, tonight's no cinch. I mean, Penn State beat them in Bloomington last year? Penn State's actually turned it around and won its last 2 games. They got Ace Baldwin, who's capable of taking over any game. And if Indiana comes out and doesn't play the way they played against Purdue and starts feeling they've got it made now, that they can easily get beat.
What do you think of Chris Jans?
He's okay. I mean, I don't know. He wouldn't be one of my top 10 picks. Why? Do you like him?
Well, I was hoping you could take that cue. I needed to run out for a second, but someone asked the question, and I was curious because he's doable because he doesn't have a big contract. He's having some success at Mississippi State. His buyout is like $4 million or less or what have you.
Today's not a good day to ask because he got beat by Alabama by 38 points last night. In the game before, he lost to a bad Oklahoma team. He's okay. I mean, I don't think the fan base would – I don't think he'd win over the fan base. Didn't he had some issue at Bowling Green or something where he was with a woman or something? He was hitting on a woman who wasn't his wife or something.
I can't keep up with all the scandals. There's so many of them.
I think there was something involved in that, and then he went somewhere else briefly before he went to Mississippi State. They can do better than Chris Jans. He was at Bowling Green for 1 year, New Mexico State for 5 years, and he's been at Mississippi State for 3 years. He's had several good years. I mean, he's a fine coach. I just don't think he wouldn't be my pick.
Is Bruce Pearl out of the question? I think he is, just because of his age and nothing else, in addition to would he leave what he has going right now and come to why? He's built what he needs to build at Auburn. What the hell would he need to come to Indiana for at this stage?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Bruce Pearl. With Bruce Pearl, a lot of it is about Bruce Pearl. The Indiana basketball would be about Bruce Pearl instead of being about Indiana basketball. He's got a huge ego and got a lot of energy, got a lot of enthusiasm, got a tremendous winning record. But I think at this point, isn't he 65 or something? I think
he's going to be 65.
Right. Plus, he's.
Yeah.
I don't see that being the case. I don't see him being the coach.
Can you imagine if they had hired Rick Pitino 4 years ago?
No, I can't. Yeah, someone said he wanted it when I don't know when Knight got fired or something. Is that?
Rumors. Coolio asking, what is the point of a buyout if it is true that UCLA would negotiate down Cronin's buyout if he wants to leave? That seems to fly in the face of the buyout concept, because at the time they thought they wanted to keep him locked down for a long time. And now maybe both parties have decided they don't want to be locked down for a long time. So that would provide that. I have not seen a lot of fan support for Mick Cronin.
Yeah, I mean, he criticized early on. He expressed his unhappiness about UCLA making all these trips across the country. So that was number one. Then he ripped his team for lack of effort and being delusional and thinking they're better than they are as players. And he carried that on. And then he ripped the fans because they didn't cheer or they were booed or something when they missed free throws. And, in the last week, I read a column from the Daily Bruin, which is a student paper at UCLA, saying that, Mick Cronin needed to have a big march, or after all the stuff he was doing, he was going to be in trouble. And Bill Plaschke, who's an award-winning columnist at the LA Times, wrote a column yesterday in the LA Times basically saying that, Cronin is being known for this complaining all the time instead of he's a good coach, his teams play hard, but all this whining after the game and all this complaining about stuff is what he's starting to be known for. And, he needs to change that. He needs to take a different approach to that. And I just wonder whether some of the stuff he's complaining about all the time is signaling to people saying, I'm not really happy here and I'd like out of here. And UCLA and softening up the UCLA administration, saying, we get this guy here who doesn't really like it here. Maybe we should cut his buyout and let him go. I don't know.
I think that sounds like the case, because it doesn't do UCLA good to have a guy who's not happy there. They haven't had the success they've wanted through the last two coaches now, although both have had semblance of success. Steve Alford went to a 3 Sweet 16s, but that was his ceiling there. And Mick Cronin is just not it. But I guess maybe they don't have all the resources they need, it sounds like.
UCLA is a great program. They have a tremendous tradition, but they don't have great support. I mean, they don't. I've mentioned this.
You're in Los Angeles. It's just, I think it gets lost.
Yeah, you're in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of other things to do. You're at best the third most popular basketball team behind the Lakers and the Clippers. And if Eric Musselman gets it going at USC, you might be fourth. And I looked it up last week, and I'm looking it up right now. I've almost have it. They're only averaging, last week it was 47% capacity in a 14,000 seat arena. So I'm trying to look right now. They're way down here. They're 68th in the country in attendance. They're averaging 6,675 fans a game in a 13,800 seat arena. They're at 48% capacity. So he's not even filling half of what would be a small building in the Big Ten. And that tells me two things. One is people aren't crazy about the product. And he's been good. He hasn't been bad. He wins. And secondly it tells me that as Mick Cronin is a basketball guy, he's from the Midwest. He coached at Cincinnati when Huggins had it rolling. He coached at Louisville when Pitino had it rolling. He's got to be in there saying, what am I doing here? This is 5 or 6 years in, and we can't come close to filling the building. This isn't a real basketball place.
It's not. It's like you said, being in Los Angeles, you would think having that many people would be a benefit, but I think it's not. I think it just gets lost. The students, maybe you can't build. How do you build, student tradition in Los Angeles. When we're used to going to all these college towns, where even Louisville is an urban school, but they still have the city revolves around the University of Louisville.
Yes, it does.
That is not the case in Los Angeles. And then you have Indiana or Kentucky and smaller, college towns, and that's what the atmosphere is like. God, it could not be any further from the case for like UCLA and closer to an LA Lakers situation. You need showtime.
Yeah,
Need showtime.
I don't remember if you went or not, but I'm sure if you didn't go, you watched it. When Indiana played UCLA in the Rose Bowl, the place was empty. I mean, it's the kind of place where if you're really winning at a high level, they're going to come. But if you're not, when you're only filling half the building, there's no pressure on fans to buy tickets. They know I can go any game I want to go, and I can decide an hour before the game to go and drive and walk up to the building and buy a ticket. That's the kind of situation you're in. And they've won recently. They were in the Final Four in 2021. I think he was like 16-2 in the Pac-12 a couple of years ago. He had, players that people remembered, whether it was that Tiger Campbell guy or Johnny Jaquez or the guy who's on the Miami Heat now, or Juzang, who played at Kentucky, and he's got decent players now. I mean, he does. It's a good product, but it's not captivating UCLA fans. It's not.
Nope, and it's hard to do that. But Indiana, that's the great thing about Indiana. Even when they suck, they still have this core of fans that are there. Now the ebbs and flows, but even bad is pretty good. But
well, when that goes away, that's when the program's in trouble. And that's what I would say to somebody like Matt Painter, that as long as that's there, Indiana has a chance to bring the program back, because it's putting pressure on the administration to saying this isn't good enough. And if you gave Matt Painter truth serum and you said, do you really think Mike Woodson's done a good job? Do you really think he deserves a fifth year? It's not just Mike Woodson, any coach that would be at Indiana after 4 years and is looking at missing the tournament his last 2 years and not really coming close to competing for a Big Ten title would be looked at the way Mike Woodson's looked at.
He knows he's not going to lose many recruits to Mike Woodson.
Correct.
Because he is going to outwork him. He's going to out-recruit him. So he does not want to see Mike Woodson go away.
You're right.
But he has not beaten him on the court like one would imagine.
No, they're 4-4. That's the thing.
Not only that, could easily be 5-3.
Could easily be 5-3. And last year there were 2 blowouts, but this year they could have won the first game. And that's part of the Mike Woodson puzzle of can't beat Nebraska, can't beat Northwestern, struggles against Penn State, but does okay against Purdue. Beats Ohio State too. Isn't Ohio State another team he has a good record against? I think it is.
Yeah, and they've got those great net rankings, although they're 2 games above 500. I don't understand
Ohio State.
But,
I don't either. That game's
crazy.
That's going to be that's almost like
game.
an NCAA tournament elimination game. That's an NCAA tournament game, the last game of the year, because both of those teams.
Q1.
Yeah, that's a huge game for IU.
Indiana and Penn State tonight. They've got to get it done. What is on your agenda?
I'll be watching that. I'll be watching Kentucky at Oklahoma tonight. Louisville won again last night. They've just finished their ACC road schedule with a 9-1 record. They finished the year with 3 home games, which they should all win. They're going to end up 18-2 in the ACC in their first year under Pat Kelsey. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, especially with the fact of 13 new players. I mean, an entire complete roster.
And 2 very important players injured and been out this whole calendar year. 2 guys that would be in the rotation.
Is Pat Kelsey?
Yeah, he is.
Yes, he is the Kurt Signetti of college basketball this year. Came from the College of Charleston, maybe bigger. The College of Charlestown is not James Madison.
No, it's not. But yeah,
he's
won They've had one. They've played one game all year when they didn't play their best, and that was Georgia Tech. They lost on the road. So for a team to be 22-6 and play 28 games where they delivered one performance that wasn't at their best, pretty good.
And how about Bill Self, man? Not having a great last.
Not having a great year, and then admits that he thought about the Oklahoma State job. I mean, that was weird.
I mean, why you do that? Just to get some attention off you? But that doesn't do that.
I don't know. I don't know.
People are crazy.
And they were supposed to be loaded. They got Hunter Dickinson and AJ Storr and all these other dudes. What are you doing?
Got that there. See, that's just they're in a situation like Indiana. They had a great store-bought roster, and didn't happen. And
yeah, they shot the Rodeo Drive.
Hunter Dickinson seems maybe he's the thing that brings everything down. It didn't work wherever he's been.
You might be facetious, but I agree with that. I think he's all about Hunter Dickinson.
I'm not. I'm serious. Because he has that look about him. What did he stomp somebody or something earlier in the season? I remember he got booted for it, as he should have. But and Anthony Leo, did you watch that by chance?
I saw the replay. Yeah,
I think that was a dirty play. Personally,
yeah, I don't like
dirty play.
Somebody's crotch.
That's what I said.
I think he thought it was a dirty play too, because after he didn't get thrown out, he looked like he was a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I agree. Rick Bozich, the captain, we appreciate you, brother, as always.
Right. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Make sure you give Rick a follow and keep up with everything he's got going at WDRB.com. Appreciate you guys for being with us on the program today. As always, we're back tomorrow to do it again. Coach Shannon Griffith will be with us. We'll talk some football. It's caught up on some of Indiana's latest recruits and what's going on there. Bob Kravitz as well. And we'll see what else we can scare up for you along the way. It's been a fun one as always. We can't do it without you. So grateful. Go out and have yourselves a great and wonderful day. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.